They'll be calling you a radical, Kevin Blanch. We're at the amazing, the grand, the incredible Elkhorn Slough. And so, there's the Moss Landing power plant. But anyway, we're going to talk about the ecology here and what we've seen collapse over the last post 5 years. This is the incredible place. And so that's a grebe right there. Remember in Great Salt Lake where I live, all the grebes died at Dugway. Remember, they flew into a parking lot. And then all the grebes ended up dead after that. And then the eagles migrate from Alaska and they eat the grebes. Remember the staggering to death eagles? Oh, and then they came out and gave us this lie that it was West Nile, which I debunked because I talked to the people that said it. It said it wasn't West Nile. So I keep track of Farmington Bay, and people are paid to keep track, yet they don't. So this year at Farmington Bay, 8 eagles return. We get 800. It's just dead grebes. And remember, oh, we got that. There was a diving pelican. But remember, at Bristol Bay, it was a retired ecologist, a retired marine biologist that was just walking, doing work, and he had a friend at Channel 11 in Anchorage. Took him out there because these derelicts that work for the federal government, these derelicts that work in the ecological thing, are they told to stand down or are they just too lazy? They're golden handcuffs. The marine biologists can kiss my ass. The scumbags. So we're going to talk about where sea, because the one component of the Great Marsh, this is the Great Marsh. I'm telling you, I'm all over. The one behind my house in corporate welfare, dairy farmers drained it off, which are politicians, by the way. And so it's disturbing and disgusting. This is the Great Marsh that's left in the United States. And we get marine, it's sad what's going on, but we want to talk about more per se the marine life coming in and how it's all gone away. And you think, oh, these shores never had sea anemones, oysters, clams. Oh, really? There's the ignorance, see as I, want to see. So we're going to walk right up here and take a look at this. Let's walk up here. And so we're going to let Chris, a longtime native here, give a little talk and dissertation about the shell life here. And tell them where we're at, what the name of the island is, Chris.
Well, this is called Hummingbird Island. It's a natural knoll that rises above the Elkhorn Slough. Right behind us is the main channel of the slough. And at the very crest of this hill, there's a Native American village site. And you'll see, when we get it to the top, there's quite a bit of shell, mostly the native Pacific oyster, Ostrea lurida. And we're going to come up here and we're going to see this beautiful sculpture, this pond that was built, and it was built out of the oyster shells from the slough many, many decades ago, because the environment down here is not able to sustain this type of a population.
Now I want people to know the tracks that run right through the marsh, you can ride it anytime you want. I've rode it lots of times. Amtrak goes right through here.
It does.
This is Moss Landing.
Yeah.
What a place.
Yeah. Yeah, you can see the smokestacks of the PG&E power plant.
Yeah, don't even get me going there. That's a whole other dissertation.
All right.
So, go ahead and let's talk about we want to talk about the oyster, the shell, the sea anemones, the sea life on the Elkhorn in your lifetime. And we were talking about it down there. Go ahead. And the oysters. And
I started coming here when I was in high school in the 80s. And my father brought me out here. We used to take walks. So that was my first exposure to Elkhorn Slough. And so I remember these trails. I remember seeing all these things back, 30 years ago. And I can remember the marine environment, being, very rich and diverse, but it's especially been degraded just over the last couple of years. It's really come down fast. And the oysters used to be the most common marine invertebrate that lived in the slough.
And they were here just till a couple years ago.
Yes.
We've seen none today, by the way, and we've been all over the slough.
None. When we were up at Kirby Park, I was shocked when I saw the rocks along the shoreline at the parking lot at the boat ramp. They had oysters attached to those rocks, Now we didn't see not one oyster. And then here we have in the background, we have this old sculpture here that somebody had built with rock and cement and seashells, native seashells. And so they took
let's walk this way, Chris, and let's talk about, you know, so we can talk about how native the tree. A lot of people don't know eucalyptus are not native to California.
No, they're from Australia. They're all from Australia.
And so, you know, of course, the sequoia is the state tree, rightfully so, the greatest beast there are. They cut them all down. But the California live oak are so spectacular. And talk about the cypress trees and about how the California Monterey cypress, the only two places they're really native.
There's only two native stands of cypress trees where they grow naturally. One is at Point Lobos, and the other one on Carmel Bay, and then right across the Carmel Bay at Pebble Beach, from Pescadero Point all the way to Cypress Point. But those are the only two native, but they've been planted in multiple other areas over the last, you know, 100 years, 150 years.
Stand right here, Chris, and, you know, talk about the native dwellings. And, you know, of course, this is a, you know, it's...
Okay, we're standing right in the middle of a Native American village site. And this was chosen because it was...
I don't call them Native Americans, by the way, because they were natives long before Vespucci got his dumb ass here. So I just call them natives.
Yeah, the indigenous peoples. Indigenous peoples. And the name of the indigenous peoples, the tribe that lived in this area, was called Kalendaruk, which means ocean place houses. Moss Landing, Elkhorn Slough was called Kalendaruk. And Rook is the word R-U-K, is the word for, means hut, or means hut, literally. And so Kalenda means ocean place. And then just to the north of us in Pajaro and Watsonville, they were called the Guacharones. And then to the south of us, you have the Rumson, Ohlone, lived on the Monterey Peninsula, Carmel Valley, Lower Salinas Valley. And on the ground here, right in front of us, we have shell. We have pieces of oyster shell. There's oyster shell. This whole top of this knoll here has seashell in it. And this was their campground, and this is where they ate the food. They brought it up from the slough. They took them off the rocks, and they dug them out of the mud, and brought them up here and cooked them and ate them right up here on this spot. And they would have had their huts up here. There wouldn't have been any trees up here. This all would have been kept clear.
Let's walk around this way. And keep going.
And so what they did was, you know, we look at this now and we see a rank growth of plants, but at that time there was this all completely devoid of vegetation, because the indigenous peoples did controlled burns every year, where they burned off the plants, and they burned it all the way to the ground in areas where they were hunting, where they were gathering, and they did that to facilitate and make it easier for them to collect their wild foods. And so all there would have been up there would have just been grass. There would have been grass up on this hill. No bushes, but however, there would have been the California live oaks, which there are a few up here. They would have been scattered around, and they collected the acorns during the fall. They collected those for that was a major food source for the indigenous peoples here in California.
So what we're up to is, you know, we're down here because our tide's flowing way out. Now, the tide flowing way out is the lowest in 3 years right now. We timed this for December 11th, 10th, 12th this week. I knew they were going to be low, and we've been documenting the tide pools at Monterey, Doc Ricketts, which they're a catastrophe. We've covered them all. We've covered every single tide pool on the entire peninsula the last couple days, and we did find 3 starfish, orange. That's it. That's it. And same with here. You know, I was out here 2 years ago, and like he said, the oysters on the thing, they were still there. Now, we got a great video of, as I said, you know, every time I go to the ocean, these creatures come right up to me. And Chris and I are sitting right there, and he says, I can't believe it. The sea otter comes right up to us. And so, you know, we know what they eat and they feed on, but he says they don't usually come that close. And I says, well, they're looking for food. And so, people are in denial about the epic collapse. This is not gradual. This is not... There's 100 million dead trees, including California live oaks, which are grand. We saw a really amazing buck yesterday in Carmel Valley with his harem of does, with his neck swelled up, because it's protected. You know, California does a good job at the state level. There's a lot of good protected lands, and they try. But when Fukushima's pouring in, how do you fight back against that? You know, the nuclear industry, why would they possibly let it go on for 2,100 days? So we'll make more videos. What a tree. I mean, by the way, Carmel by the Sea and the cypresses there, of course, we all know. But, you know, that's the problem. Everybody, ooh, I'm an elitist. I'm going to move into this California ecology and stand in my ivory tower in my glass fucking house. You know, they're so comfortable. Ooh, this is my, you know, they won't defend. They're not about to defend. And, you know, the marine biologists can all kiss my ass. They're derelict. I believe they should be all locked up and put in prison. Every one of them. Because they're working for the taxpayer. You make a living off other people's taxes. I mean, they refuse. And Chris can verify this. I give the same dissertation when I walk into every single, you know, visitor center. And I have the conversation with them all. They used to argue with me. Oh, no. They don't argue anymore, but you saw how uncomfortable it was. They'll get up and walk out. They don't want to talk about the reality.
It was a silent, uncomfortable. It was an inconvenient truth that they don't like the mirror put in their face. Nope,
that's the problem. It's comfortable California. Yeah. But if we're going to win, we're going to win here. Because they're leaps and bounds ahead of the rest of the country. You know, we got Diablo, or San Onofre shut down. We're working on Diablo. So, stand tuned, and we'll shoot more of these.